Everything looked normal on August 14, 1995, until the quiet corridor changed the night. It is late evening in a narrow strait between scheduled ports. The sky is clear, the wind is steady, the swell is low. Deck lights lay thin lines across the water. The ferry moves on time. They are newlyweds in their mid-20s from the Midwest. A simple honeymoon on a regional ferry line. No special plans. Just a crossing, a few photos in a small journal, and rest. Their cabin is an interior room midship. The keycard logs show routine use through the day. In and out for meals, in and out for the deck. Noted before sailing, a small journal notebook, a day pack and 2 light jackets. After dinner they choose a familiar route. They walk the upper corridor near a crew hatch. It is a straight run with a bend near the door. Their plan is simple. Be back in the cabin before midnight. The last ordinary moment lands at about 10:35 p.m. A steward passes them by the maintenance hatch. He notes their calm pace. Nothing stands out. They keep moving. He continues his rounds. The corridor settles. Metal underfoot. Wind along the hull. The hatch sits where the passage turns, the kind of corner you forget until you don't. Then the paper record shifts. The bridge log shows a call button press near that hatch at 10:41 p.m. There is no follow-up. Entry, no name. Only a time and a place. The first crack in a night that should have stayed ordinary. At first light, room service knocks. No answer. A second call goes to the cabin. Still nothing. The steward flags a supervisor. A quiet crew alert goes out. The morning feels routine, but the couple does not answer the door. An onboard sweep starts, deck by deck. Lounges, stairwells, corridors. Crew check restrooms and corner nooks. Nearby cabins are asked for quick sightings. Some remember the pair. After dinner. No one can place them past the late corridor near the hatch. The bridge sets a timeline and marks the last confirmed area. The captain orders a slow retrace along the prior course. Security teams keep moving door to door. Muster stations stay calm. The goal is simple. Confirm they are aboard. When the sweep comes up empty, the Coast Guard is called. A helicopter lifts to fly the grid. A cutter steams to the track lines. Lifebuoys and marker lights are deployed. Search and rescue begins a square pattern. The weather is workable but windy. Spray comes over the bow. Back on board, the cabin is opened and logged. Wallets are present. Rings are present. The small notebook sits on the desk. The railcoats still hang by the door. One expected item is not there. The day pack is missing. The search widens over water. The crew keeps eyes on the starboard side. The helicopter works low and slow. The cutter holds the grid. Time matters now. Drift grows with each minute. In the first official notes, a cautious line appears. A possible accidental fall is listed. A wet rail at night, wind at the corner. Low swell but enough to change a step. The language is careful. It does not claim more than it can hold. Statements are taken in sequence. The steward repeats the 10:35 p.m. pass by the maintenance hatch. He heard no argument. He saw no chase. Other staff recall a quiet corridor near closing. Nothing in those words closes the gap. The paperwork grows. Bridge entries. Cabin checklist. SAR calls. All clipped together. The file reads in order, but the night still refuses to sit flat. One number will not balance. The life jacket inventory is short by 1, yet no issuance is logged on that deck. From 1996 to 2003, the file grows thin. Anniversary notes are stamped and filed. On early message boards, a few lines repeat. People mention a quiet corridor. They mention a squeaky hatch. They mention late footsteps when most cabins were dark. None of it is sworn. It sits beside the paperwork, not inside it. Between 2004 and 2009, a light folklore forms around the route. The talk is careful but steady. Some mention smuggling on certain sailings. Others mention crew-only shortcuts that save a minute or two. A blind corner comes up again and again. The words are soft. The pattern is not. The families keep going. Each year, a letter asks for a full deck camera review. Each year, they ask for hatch access lists for the exact hour. Calls are logged. Summaries are written. Replies stay brief and formal. The requests do not change. The answers do not either. Community memory holds small anchors. Former deckhands remember a dark bend past the theatre where the light never quite reached. They say wind on the starboard side could hide a voice. These are fragments, not proofs. Still, they match what the early posts described: the corridor, the bend, the noise of wind. Across those years, the case becomes routine to the system and present to the families. The logs show actions taken. The inbox shows messages received. The sea stays quiet on the one thing that matters most. Who was at that hatch in that minute? Then a tip arrives without a name. It points to an old cargo locker number tied to the Ferry's past. Investigators look for it on maps and lists. They search the inventory and the refit notes. The number does not match anything on hand. The lead that could change the file has no place to land. In 2012, a civilian researcher asks to see the old file during a ferry refit and scrap review. A retired investigator agrees to help. Two sets of eyes, one goal: read everything again. They start with paper. Purser manifests list cabins and dates. Maintenance logs list work codes and locations. Storeroom lists show what was kept and where. Pages sit side by side. Lines are traced with a pen. Small notes gather in the margins. A pattern appears. One maintenance code repeats near the hatch named in the 1995 bridge log. It is not a big note. It is a small code that shows up more than once. The circle goes around that line. They check diagrams next. A dock plan from 1995 shows an off-map storage area. It is not on the public diagram. It sits just outside the neat border. A box with a label, no photo, no key. It is there on the old plan and missing on the newer one. The question becomes reach. If items move off the ship, where can they drift or be placed? The team looks at simple drift models for that coast. They mark a tidal debris zone that could hold lost or stored things over time. They make a plan. First the paper trail, then the ground. They decide to scout a remote storage yard tied to the dock plan. They also mark the nearby debris zone for a walkthrough if time allows. The yard sits quiet. Rows of metal, old paint, numbers in fading stencils. They work methodically down each aisle. Tags are checked. Codes are read aloud and written down. Most do not match the file. Then they stop. In a back row behind other units there is a sealed metal locker. The stamp on its face is clear enough to read. It carries the repeating maintenance code. The storage yard sits close to the coast. Wind moves through metal rows. Salt hangs in the air. Paint flakes from doors. Sand piles against the lower racks. It looks forgotten, but it is not empty. They work one aisle at a time. Numbers are dull and worn. Then a match appears. A sealed metal locker with corroded latches but an intact body. The tag on its face matches the maintenance code near the hatch from the old logs. That code ties this locker straight back to the corridor area named in the file. The latches give with care. Inside is a wrapped satchel. The canvas is stiff from salt. When it opens, a waterlogged ledger slides free. Pages cling together, but some lines can still be read. The object is plain, the meaning is not. A ledger shifts the case from chance to order. It points toward organized activity, not a random night. They move slowly with the pages. First, freeze dry to stop more damage. Then gentle separation with clean sheets between. High-resolution scans follow to save what remains. Letter by letter, words return. Several entries repeat the same two marks, the word hatch and the time fragment 10-4. One page lists cabin numbers from that sailing week. The list is not full, but it is clear. In the margin, a single note sits beside a number that matters. The couple's cabin appears once. No comment, no arrow, just the number with a small line next to it. More lines come back as the scans improve. Short phrases, dates, ticks and dashes. The pattern keeps pointing to the same spot on the ship and the same minute on the clock. The corridor, the hatch, the time window. The ledger does not give names. It does not name a job. It does, however, add one last mark that changes the weight of the page. Next to the hatch note and the 10-4 range, one entry carries a third set of initials, silent letters that suggest another person stood in that minute. We start with the simplest path. Theory A is accident. Wind, a wet deck, and a late hour can turn one step into a fall. Records note an open rail section, and no struggle recorded on the ship. That fits a quiet night. But the ledger's repeated hatch, Notes do not sit neatly with a lone misstep. The third set of initials beside the time range also pushes against a pure accident. Theory B looks at third-party or gang involvement. Here the artifacts line up. The sealed locker ties to the hatch code. The ledger mentions the hatch and 1042. The timing echoes the bridge log window. Together, these pieces suggest another presence. The limits are firm, though. No confirmed ID, no clear face. The records are partial, and the salt years erased prints and DNA. We cannot name who stood there. Theory C is a mixed event. It holds that confusion or an argument overlapped with a smuggling move. The motion could bring people into the same blind corner at the same minute. The ledger hints at activity. The night explains the noise and pace. But this view leans on rumor and fragments. There is no sworn statement to fix the order or tone. Without audio or a witness, the sequence stays uncertain. Across all three, our language stays careful. We point only to what the file holds: the bridge time window, the corridor hatch, the maintenance code, the sealed locker, and the ledger marks. Incidents at sea often cross flags and agencies. That can split or thin records. This case shows those seams. The paperwork is real, but it is not whole, so we are left with artifacts that speak, and a timeline that narrows, but not to one story. The corridor remains the hinge, the hatch remains the mark, and the ledger adds letters without a name. If a third person was present, why is there no access log at that hatch for that minute? The last major item comes from the page itself. A handwriting review says the ledger was not written by one person. Multiple hands show up in the strokes and spacing. One set repeats near the shorthand, 1041. The same curves, the same pressure, the same small tick on the number 1. It sits beside the hatch mark inside the minute that matters. With that, the file is updated. Scans of the ledger pages go in. Chain of custody logs are added line by line. The sealed locker is labeled and stored. The summary at the front is revised, but the wording stays careful. Status: undetermined. No charges filed. No suspect named. The record moves forward without closing. Next steps shift to people. Families and maritime groups ask anyone from that 1995 week to come forward. Passengers, crew, dock workers, a corridor, memory, a hatch detail, a name for initials. The request is simple. If you remember that Ben by the hatch, tell someone now. On the ground, the search widens. The storage yard inventory is expanded past the first rows. Old tags are checked against maintenance codes. Anything with salt damage or matching stencils is set aside. The goal is to find more pages or another book, or even a tag that links a hand to a name. One more test runs in the background. Drift math models how a locker could travel from ship to shore to yard. The numbers allow the path. Currents and time can do it. But the line on the chart stretches farther than the clock should allow, longer than expected for the time frame. The corridor is quiet again. Deck lights hum and trace soft lines on metal. The hatch sits where it always did. The ETA. Blind corner is still there, a simple turn that swallows sound. Wind moves along the starboard side and fades into the night. We stand at the same bend, same rail, same narrow view. There are no voices now, only the low thrum of the ship and the steady glow of bulbs above the door. It looks ordinary. It never was. The families keep going. They save the letters. They answer new calls each year. They hold photos in hallway frames and wait for a name. They keep the dates. They keep the timelines. They do not let the file go cold. The record sits with what it has: pages, codes, and a time window. The corner remains a question. The hatch remains a point on paper. The sea keeps its quiet line. The ledger gave the minute and the mark, but not the name that stood in the dark.